everyone, it's Nancy at Sipping and Painting Hamden. Welcome, I'm so glad you decided to paint with us today. I'm going to be showing you how to paint this lovely painting called Runoff. And to me it looks like it's in the mountains. It has some fall colors, beautiful fall colors, and it also has a stream. So this is our painting, Runoff, and I'm wearing an apron. I have water. I have napkins, and I have 3 primary colors of paint, yellow, red, and blue, and I also have white and black. I have 3 brushes today. If your brushes don't look like mine, that's okay, as long as you have a small, medium, and large, we're gonna make that work for you. And I do have an assistant. My handsome husband, Saul, took the afternoon to join you on chat. If you have any questions, he's gonna let me know, because it is a little bit more difficult for me to hear this with my camera phone. Okay, all right, here we go. The first thing we're gonna do is we're gonna cover our entire canvas with water. The reason we do that is that it's very dry in Denver, as you know. And when we cover our canvas with water, it allows us to keep our paints moist. And our paints are going to be drying out faster than we paint. That's a given in this climate. But the first step is adding water to our canvas. And then throughout our painting, oops, one second. Okay, sorry, Sal's question just showed up on my screen. Throughout our painting, if your paint starts to feel like pudding or peanut butter, add a little water, add a few drops of water to it, and then stir it in. We want to keep the paint so that it's like Hershey's syrup or olive oil. We want it to be a thick liquid rather than a thin solid. So if your paints are getting really dry, add water, okay? A few drops at a time. Okay, great. So the first thing we're gonna do is we're gonna put in this background sky, which is pretty easy. And the way I'm gonna do that is I'm going to use a big brush, the biggest brush I have. I'm gonna put one side in white. I'm gonna put the other side in blue. And then I'm just going to go back and forth. Pretty easy sky. I want horizontal streaks. But here's the thing. If you're in finance or IT or you have a really neat house, you're probably going to want to blend all of this away and make it all one color. And I want to encourage you to not do that. What I want is streaks, okay? So resist the urge to have it all one color or to overblend. Friends, don't let friends overblend, okay? So we want it to be streaky, so it looks like there are some long, skinny clouds just kind of being pulled across the horizon, okay? So resist the urge to blend, okay? And then I'm going to also paint the sides of my canvas where the sky is. And I'm going to paint the top and the other side as well. And just keep in mind that no one's painting is going to look exactly like the original. Mine is not going to look exactly like the original. Yours is not going to look exactly like mine, and that's absolutely fine. That's what we want. We want your personalities to come through in the painting. Kind of the opposite of work, right? In painting, there's no right or wrong. There's no shouldas, no couldas, no wouldas. It's just you and the paint, relaxing, having fun, and then we'll see what you come up with, you'll see what I come up with, and you'll see what your friends at work come up with. And it's just relax and have a good time and enjoy it. When your paint starts to feel like it's not moving easily across the canvas, pick up a drop or two of water, but not so much that it drips. And you can paint with a drop or two of water, and that really helps. I'm noticing that mine's looking kind of blendy, so I'm gonna pick up more white paint, and I'm gonna make some areas that aren't all straight, aren't all the same color, because I do want to leave streaks. This is acrylic paint that we're using today. Acrylic paint is permanent paint. It's in the paint world, it's one of the newer paints. It's made of plastic and pigment, which is like dried up powdered colors, and glue, basically. And it will stain your clothes or anything you get it on. So if you do get it on something, blot it, pull it off with a clean paper towel, and then rub some dish soap into it right away, and then put it in the washing machine on hot and say a prayer. So there's something I want to tell you about your painting that you're doing today. Here's another copy of it. And if you look at both of these copies, they're done by two different artists. But the thing I want to show you is that the original artist who painted this one had a very impressionistic style. I mean, it's a very impressionistic painting anyway, but this one is more realistic and this one is less realistic. You can tell this tree looks more like a tree, and this is much looser. This tree has blue in it. And when this artist interpreted this painting and did it again, she put more lifelike, realistic colors in it. There's a lot less blue. She just used the blue as the shadow. So your painting is going to be different, and that's okay. So I just want to give you permission, even though this is a work event, feel free to just be as creative as you want. If you want purple trees and a red river, you just do whatever you want. You know, just relax and enjoy it. I'm going to teach somewhere in between, because my style is a little more in between. But I just wanted to show you that there's no exactly perfect way to do the colors we're going to do. And so if you follow me, it'll look like somewhere in between. Anyway, the thing I want to tell you about impressionistic painting is that it's not exactly realistic. It's kind of on the continuum from abstract to realistic. It's more in the middle. And the thing that I love about Impressionism is a quote that I heard from Monet when we went and visited one of the museums. And it's when he was asked why he painted the way he did, he was actually told by critics that his paintings looked like underpaintings, that they weren't perfectly, finished. So he was told they looked unfinished. And what he said was, when I paint, what I'm painting is your memory of what you saw after you look away. So once you look away, you're not going to remember that you saw a blue tree. You're just going to remember all the vibrant colors. So anyway, kind of a fun thing to keep in mind. So I'm going to put this painting over here out of our way. And we're going to keep going. All right. Hey, artists. Hopefully your sky's on, and it's okay if it's not dry. We're just going to keep right on going. I'm going to take a small brush. I'm going to dip it into my blue paint, and I'm going to draw this creek, just the outline of the creek, just so I know where it's going to be when I do put water in it. And so I'm going to start, I'm going to take my hand, I'm not going to get my painting all wet, I'm not going to touch all the way, but a little farther than halfway across the horizon to the right, and I'm going to put a little dot. So it's a little closer to the right side. And then I'm going to... Which small brush you use? So your brush is different than mine. Someone asked which small brush. it doesn't really make any difference. Just pick up any brush that's small. Okay, so we're just gonna make a dot there. And then we're gonna go about an inch and a half, inch and a half, something like that, with another dot. And then, so we have a dot and a dot. And then down here, we're going to, hold on. Down at the bottom, I want to divide this up into thirds with my eyes. So, and then I'm going to put a dot where I think a third will be. So about a third and about a third. So a third, a third, a third, approximately. It's not perfect. There's nothing perfection. There's no perfection in art. In fact, perfection's the enemy of art. We want to just relax and see what we get. So that's going to be the top of my creek. These are going to be the bottom of my creek. And I'm going to start at the dot, and I'm going to make a curve out. You can make it curve more if you want. It doesn't really matter, because this is all going to be filled in with blue and white. And this one's going to have a similar curve, but notice it's wider at the base. Like that Meghan Trainor song, it's all about the base, right? So I just made mine a little bit wider. Excuse me. And so the reason I did it like that, I want it to look like the creek gets wider as it comes out. Now I notice that this may be slightly wider than what I have at the bottom, and I want the bottom to be the widest, so I can fix that. I just want to show you that there's nothing permanent about those first lines. That's why it didn't matter what brush you use. We're just sketching on to get a general idea. I want to make sure that the bottom of my creek is wider than up here and a little bit wider than the center. Whoop. Now my creek is going to be bigger than this one. It doesn't really matter. It makes no difference. And I'll show you. This one was really wide. So doesn't much matter. In fact, you could even make your creek, if you wanted, you could make it come out wider at the base. There's no perfect measurements in this. And we're going to be putting foliage on both sides of the painting, and it's going to cover the sides of the bank. It'll make it a little thinner anyway. So once you get your creek the way you like it, just make sure that it has a curve here, it has a curve here, that it's wider at the base than it is in the center, and wider at the center than it is at the top of the creek. If you've got those things, then you've got a good creek. And then I'm going to do the same thing in the creek that I did to the sky. I'm going to have some blue, but I'm going to use a smaller brush. So again, whatever size brush feels comfortable for you, but I'm going to use a smaller one than I did for the background of the sky. I'm putting in some blue streaks and some white streaks, and they're going to be horizontal. I'm going to just keep going back and forth, just scribbling horizontally, horizontal scribbles. Now you might say, well, if this painting is called Runoff and the water is flowing down, why would I put horizontal scribbles in my water? And I'll tell you why. We've done this painting both ways. You'll see in that little profile picture on Zoom. In that one, originally this painting had water that was going down, and it didn't look natural, and I'll tell you why it didn't. It didn't look natural when you paint the water going this way, because water seeks its own level, as you know, right? I know this is an extra smart group, I heard. So you know that water seeks its own level, and so at every step along this creek, every plane, every latitude, if you will, it's going to sit there until it falls down another rock and falls down another rock. And so it's going to, from a distance, the water will look flat. And so I'm just taking, this is my smallest brush. I'm just taking a small brush. If your smallest brush is really, really tiny, use a medium brush, okay? But just don't use the large, okay? And I'm making sure that the water lines are, the streaks are just going horizontally back and forth. Is it okay if I leave a little white canvas behind it? Sure, no problem. But I do want some white streaks. Again, I don't want to overblend because I want it to look like it's water coming down. And I think I'm going to pull my top of my creek a little bit more to slightly more gentle angle right up there. Again, don't blend your paints together. Don't make it all sky blue, okay? Leave some streaks. Leave some streaks. It's really important. So what this should look like now is we have a sky, we have a creek, it's got floating water, and now we have to put a whole bunch of trees and bushes. So my philosophy when I paint is that painting and painting is just like anything else in life, just like marriage or raising kids or any job. Sometimes you have to get up and walk away and take a little break. Because when you take a break from it, then you'll be able to see it the way other people do, and you'll be able to really assess how you've done, and then you can come back and tweak it. If you work too hard and too long in one spot, you don't see your work anymore. I'm sure you've had that experience. And so it's the same thing with painting. You want to get up and walk away. Also, when you go to a museum, the optimal viewing distance is about 10 to 15 feet away. And so you want to step away about 10 to 15 feet away and see what you've got. If you don't do that, then you run the risk of later not seeing those steps, painting in the whole thing and saying, oh man, wish I would have made that creek a little different shape. Or I didn't notice how it looked like a trumpet or whatever. Not that that would be bad. But so do get up, walk away about 10 feet, take a look at it, see if you like it, and then we'll come back in a bit and paint some more, okay? And we're gonna go ahead and put in some grasses, okay? And what I want you to notice about these grasses is that there's green in here, so of course that suggests grasses. But then over near the water, it's brighter and lighter. So I'm thinking it could be grasses that have started to turn with the seasons for sure. It will be some bushes or even some late season wildflowers. We really don't know. But what I want to do is I want to make some green, and the way I'm going to do that is I'm going to mix together, and I'm just going to go right in between them because that's easy. I'm going to mix together a little yellow and a little blue until I get a green that I like. And your blue is a really powerful color, so you're definitely going to need more yellow than green. But don't use all your yellow because we're going to be using yellow to make orange. We're going to be using yellow for yellow. So don't use all your yellow. And we're going to make some green on the side of our plate. Green, okay? And yeah. So I'm going to lay in some grasses. Now we're going to paint the trees over it, so I don't really have to worry too much about what's going on over here. And I'm going to take a medium brush, okay? Because I don't want it to be really big, broad strokes, and I don't want it to be really small, thin. I want it to be somewhere in between. And I'm actually holding my medium brush on the side and then painting with just the side of it like that. That's giving me some slightly thinner strokes. And I'm going to just tap on these grass marks. And I'm not going to worry about filling it all in because I'm going to use a variety of colors and they're going to overlap with each other and fill in some of the white spaces. So I'm stippling, which means I'm dabbing. That's an art word for dabbling. But I'm holding the brush so that it's not the flat way, it's the sharper way. That makes sense? Because I want to get these lines that resemble tufts of grass. And then, yeah, if you want, you can have them overlap with that blue edge of the water a bit. And this painting, they have a bunch of blue behind this tree. And the one I told you that's a little more realistic, they just have it like bluer grass. And artists tend to use the color blue for more shadow areas that are in the shade. So you can pick up a little blue and put that in your grass over on the far right. And that's going to be covered by a lot of trees later anyway. All right, and then anything that will be covered by the shade of this tree, just stick in a little more blue down in here. And again, I'm not worrying about filling in every single white space in my painting. We're going to be using a bunch of different colors, and eventually most of that's going to be covered. And what's not, we're just going to consider to be highlights from the sun. And then also don't forget the sides of your canvas as well as you go. And the bottom. The reason I paint the tops, the sides, and the bottom of the canvas is that that's called a gallery wrap. And when I do that, then I don't have to paint, I don't have to put it in a frame. So it's really just a way of saving a lot of money. Because frames are expensive. And this way you can just pop this painting right on your wall and it looks finished. It will look finished. All right, so there's more blue in here. And this is mostly just grass. Now I want to add a little bit more yellow to my green after I get a bunch of green ones on there. And then I'm going to start popping in green that has more yellow in it, closer to this side. Because I want it to start to look like there's sunshine right next to it. And on the very end, and I didn't clean my brush, but I'm just putting straight on yellow on a dirty brush to make it more yellow. So more dark to the right and brighter yellow to the left. And actually more blue over here. Now this is going to be covered by a tree, so the fact that I'm putting any paint on over here is kind of a moot point, but why not? It's fun to paint. And that's the beauty of acrylic paint, is you can put layers on and they don't mix. If I were to do this with oil paint, they'd all be mixing together. So this area has not only green and yellow, it even has some orange and red in it, which is really interesting. So I'm going to just make sure that I have green, a little bit of green in all the spots that I want green in. And then I'm going to leave some of these spaces open for popping in some oranges and yellows. So let's just put the greens on first, and then I'll show you how to mix your orange. You know what, actually, we can go ahead and put some greens in over here too. Let's do the same thing on this side with our green. This is a very loose, very impressionistic painting. which is actually harder, more difficult than a realistic one, believe it or not. At least for me. I'm going to switch to the other one to show you. Oops. You can see more blue in here. Now they took the land in front. That's the most enjoyable part of painting for me, is knowing that no two people paint the same. But for people who don't paint, that tends to be really frustrating. So I'm going to try to make it a little more realistic now. All right. So I am going to put some grasses down in here. That's with my green. In the corners, that corner and this corner, more blue. That's also going to bring our eye to the center more, because, like I said, blue is a color that's often used to paint shade. And so your eye tends to go for whatever's the brightest and the warmest colors, the brightest. I could just kind of put them willy-nilly anywhere, really. A few blues here and there. Don't forget to paint your sides. And your bottoms. You should have several different sizes of brushes, so experiment. If you want to use, put in some grasses with your small brush, try it. Why not? That's why it's there. Experiment. To me, they work about the same. I'm not filling in all of the white spots because in a minute we're going to let this dry, and then we're going to come back in with some brighter colors, okay? Down here, some of these are actually going in a slightly different direction. I'm not really sure why this artist did that, but it's kind of interesting. If you like that, you can pick up some yellow, put it right on top, and maybe it's making like a little deer thicket down there. I'm not sure. But the strokes are just going in another direction to make a little flat place under this tree. All right, so I'm going to let what I have dry so that when I come back in with other colors, they'll sit on top and not mix in and make solid brown. The only thing I'm going to change is I'm going to put a little more blue down in this area where the tree is. Because remember I told you that under the tree there's going to be more shade, and blue tends to be a really nice shade color. So down under the tree, we're going to put a little more blue. And it just mixes in and makes a nice blue-green. Makes it shady looking. And these are just dabs, nothing fussy about it. All right. So I'm gonna let this dry just a little bit because, like I said, because I don't want all the colors to be put on right away at once. I want them to sit on top of each other and not blend in and make brown. So you guys keep putting on the grass wherever you want it, and then I'm gonna step away. I'll give you a few minutes if you wanna unmute and visit. While you finish up your grasses, I'm gonna let mine dry a little bit. So the next color I wanna put in, I'm gonna go with my, let's think about this for a second. I'm gonna go with my straight on yellow. So hopefully you still have some clean yellow and now a clean medium sized brush. And I'm gonna pick up some white and mix it in with just part of the yellow. So pick up a little yellow and a little white and mix it in together. It's not that we're going for a very pale yellow. We want it to still be yellow. So it has to be more yellow than white. But I want the yellow to pop, like to really show up when I put it on the canvas. And if I don't add white, it tends to get lost over the darker colors. So white will help it stand out a bit. So I have some yellow that has a little bit of white mixed in, but it's not all my yellow. Okay. And what I'm going to do with this yellow is I'm going to start closer to the sides of this. And so just so you know what we're going to do, we're going to put on some yellow, then we're going to put on some orange, then we're going to put on some red. Okay, and then we'll do the same thing over here. But the yellow, I want it to look like the sun is lighting up this area near the river or creek. And so it does have, that yellow has to have some white in it or it won't show up. And I'm not making it perfect. Don't make it perfect, okay? Resist the urge to make it a perfect line. And it's kind of overhanging this creek a bit. Or rather, hanging over. That's what I meant to say, hanging over.
Are you kind of making the same brush strokes as you did before?
It's the same, yep, we're gonna be just doing lots of this stippling, and stippling means just pop, 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 but this is kind of a pop, but a pull, like a dab, dab. And I'm just looking to see where it's really bright here and trying to approximate that. But I don't want it to be completely covered in that. I want there to be some spaces in between where some of that green still shows through. And I'm going to do something similar over here. Now, I'll have to put those pink ones on later, but something similar over here. And I'll have a little bit of this stick out over my riverbed too. I'm going to bring it down here. So remember when I was saying that the river is going to be a little bit thinner because it's going to have this foliage sticking over it in some places? That's exactly what happened. Now there's yellow up in here and up in here. Those are trees. I don't have to worry about those yet. We'll put trees and bushes back there in a few minutes. Just looking for where I might need some yellow. So I'm going to pop in a little bit of yellow in some spots over the grass too. I don't have to worry about over here. This can be covered by a tree. And I don't want to cover everything in yellow, but I just want to have some of those spots in yellow. And then I'm going to put my brush in the water and clean it really well. I'm going to go ahead and show you what the color after that, so that when I do give you a break, you'll know what to do and you can visit while you're doing it. So after the yellow, we're going to be making orange, and you make orange by just pulling in some yellow with some red. Should you use the yellow that has white in it? It doesn't really matter, that'd be fine. Whatever you have more of, whatever's easy. You're gonna probably need more yellow than red though to make orange. Yellow is just kind of a weaker color. It depends on what kind of pigments you're using, but yeah, yellow in general doesn't stand up quite the way reds and blues do. Okay, so I've got an orange. I'm going to use a small brush. It's kind of personal preference at this point, but I'm going to use a small brush and put in some of these orange. And I can do them right on top of my yellow even. But by using a small brush, I can get into smaller spaces since more of my spaces are getting filled now. And I'm just dotting in the yellow over some of the yellow, sorry, the orange over some of the yellow, but I'm going to pull it back a little bit more from the river, a little bit. And I am going to put some in my grasses, a little bit. Again, I don't know if these are grasses or bushes, but whatever they are, they've now got blue, green, yellow, and a little bit of orange in it. Down by the river here, they put some larger ones. I'm not quite sure why, but I'll just copy it. And then definitely on this side, there's quite a bit of this orange as well. This is a very impressionistic painting. We rarely paint anything at the studio that is this loose. And I like to say that when you're painting impressionistic paintings, it's this. I have the same advice for you that is exactly opposite of the advice that my dad gave me when I went off to college. So when I went off to college, my dad did not give me this advice, okay? But it's great advice when you're painting impressionistic paintings, and that is to be fast and loose. Okay, it's great for a painting, not so great sending someone off to college with that advice. So be fast and loose when you paint impressionistic paintings. So I'm putting some of that orange over here, and since I was being a little sloppy with it, maybe this got a little red. That's okay, I was going to put red in there anyway as the next step. All right, so I've got some yellow. I've got orange that's a little farther in than the yellow. And then the last thing I'm going to do is pick up red and then put in some red ones in the grass. So I'm giving you all three of those colors. First the yellow, then the orange, then the red, because I'm going to let you guys have some time to visit while you're doing that. Make the red, when you're painting the red, bring that more into the shaded areas and farther to the left, because it's a darker, bolder color, and we want it to look like the sun is hitting here and here. And by keeping the darker and bolder colors to this side and to this corner, then it's helping us create that look. We're going to come back and put some white highlights in there after, which will really make that part and this part stand out. It's like the sun is just hitting here. So we'll make that happen. But so yellow closer to the creek, then orange, and then red. They're all overlapping, but more yellow, more orange, more red, more yellow, more orange, more red. All right, so again, this painting's really loose. I tend to paint a little more realistic, so it's interesting. It'll be really fun to see how everyone's looks, because there's not a whole lot of detailed instruction in this one, which makes it kind of fun. So behind this, oops, let me see if I can get this off. Behind this clump of trees, I'm going to show you how messy that is. If you've ever seen a Van Gogh or a Monet up close, they're terribly messy too, but isn't that crazy how messy that is? All right, so we're gonna try to duplicate that, but if we don't, That's fine. Nobody's ever going to see the original. They're just going to see yours and they're going to think you're a genius. So I'm going to scratch some blue in there because I see blue. Not going to bring it all the way over because I do see yellow or red in there too. So I'm just going to scratch in some blue. I guess they're just painting in some shade back there. That's all I can figure. All right, and then I'll clean my brush. And that was with a medium-sized brush. And I'm going to let you see if I can show you this closer. Okay, hopefully that's a little better. And what you'll see is it's a really messy, interesting painting. Okay, so I scratched in some blue, see that? Now I cleaned my brush, and then I'm going to pick up red on both sides of a medium brush. Okay, and I'm going to scratch in this bush, see that? And when I say scratch, picked up red paint on both sides of a medium brush, and then I'm going to, I guess the proper word for this is scratch, because I don't know what else to call it. I'm dabbing in a scratchy way, and I'm going to do it up over the horizon. But I want it to have like definite lines at the top, like peaks. And yeah, it's mixing a little bit with the other colors, and that's fine. And then any you want to put in down here where you have little openings in your grass, feel free. So it was scratch in some blue, scratch in a red bush. And then I'm going to clean my brush. That red was a little thin, so I'm just putting on a little bit more just to deepen it a little bit. All right. After you've scratched on a bush and a red in the shape of a bush, kind of, sort of, and then some blue that really scribbled, I'm going to pick up more of that red, and I'm going to start to shape some trees. There's 1, 2, that's what we're going to do. And so the first step, I'm going to put a little bit of red in, that's going to be a tree, and over here is going to be a tree. And I'm just going to tap in. This is going to be like the center of the, I know this is very odd painting, but this is going to be kind of like the center of the cluster of leaves. And then make sure you have some orange. If you don't have any orange, you can just use that dirty red brush and just go ahead and mix some more orange for yourself. Because what I'm going to do around that red is I'm just going to pull in toward the red. We're going to start to shape a tree shape with orange around that red. Just beginning to shape in a tree. It's not usually how I paint trees. This is an interesting painting. Very impressionistic painting. And of course, this one is going to be larger. This one's larger. And as long as I have this orange on my brush, I'm going to tap in a few little bushes back there. And I want to clean that brush. Actually, I do want to make sure that orange tree has a little bit of a point to it. It's going to, I want it to be the shape of a tree. And then we're going to, the next color will be yellow to really fill it out. We won't put the trunk in until last, and that will give it some definition. So we have the center of the tree is red, and then orange, we put orange around it, and then the last step of those trees. And again, you can use a small brush or a medium. You decide what's more comfortable in your hand. But go ahead and overlap that orange with some yellow and pull the tree taller and out with some yellow. But I'm letting these colors overlap a little bit. But the yellow is at the tips. It's the brightest part of the tree. That's where the sun is hitting that tree and really making it a bold, vibrant color. And this is really, really a loose style, very loose style. And I'm going to come on top of these little bushes too, and I'm going to add a little yellow on top of those too. Why not? And I'm going to put the sides of a yellow tree over here. As if there's a yellow tree that I can't see. It's just starting onto this side. And if yours looks like a mess up close, congratulations. That's exactly what mine looks like too. And that's what it's supposed to look like, a real mess up close. But so did Monet's, so did Van Gogh's. My husband and I, we were fortunate, we went to France last year and we saw the Monet's and Van Gogh's up close. We went to Monet's garden and man, those paintings are a mess up close. They look horrible. From a distance, they're gorgeous. So that's what we're going for, that kind of painting. If you want to unmute while you're finishing up those two trees, feel free. And again, once again, I always like to step back and look at my paint from 10 feet away, which is exactly what I'm going to do right now. So go ahead and do that, okay? All right. So we're going to do these two trees back here. And basically, it's the same way we did these, except we're going to put some blue in it. Anytime you see something that's farther away, it's going to have more blue in it. Now, a tree is not going to be blue up close. That's a very impressionistic idea to have blue trees, unless it's a Colorado blue spruce. But this is pretty clearly a deciduous tree. You don't tend to see blue in those. But it's a nice way to make shadows. To paint shadows is to put blue down. And when things are farther away, they're bluer. So you can see this is a clump, and I'm putting a bunch of blue dabs in a clump, in one clump. And then this is another tree over here. So I'm gonna shape the dabs going in the direction toward the center on this one. Can you see how that's a tree and this is a tree? And that's the way I make it look like two different trees, is pull the dabs in the direction of where the stem is going to go. So there's a pretend, not stem, trunk, pretend trunk in the middle. We'll put the trunk on. Actually, these trees don't even have trunks because they're mostly hiding behind our big tree. But I'm just putting the dabs in that direction so it will, and this one's going to be completely covered anyway, so I don't know why I'm going to all that trouble. But in general, just so you get the general idea, there's a couple of trees back there. And that's how we paint them. Are they trees or are they just big bushes? I don't know. No clue. And it doesn't really matter either. So I'm going to start with the dark, the blue, and it's going to be, put a little more in the center. And then I'm going to clean my brush. And then we're going to do the same thing we did over here. We're going to do a little yellow, or sorry, red after the blue. And then we're going to do orange after the red. And then we're going to do yellow after the orange. And then as the colors go from red to orange to yellow, have them go out farther so the yellow is around the tips more. And I'm going to show you that right now. So I have the red, I'm going to have the dabs more toward the center, more toward the bottom, because these are more internal. They're not quite as bright. If you want to go ahead and paint this tree in, you can. It's going to all get covered anyway, but you do you. If it's fun, do it. If not, we can just leave that one. So there's more red toward the center. Then I'll clean my brush, come back in with orange. And I'm going to put more of those a little farther out. It's almost like we're painting a flame almost. It's that general idea. And are the colors mixing in together? Absolutely. I'm trying to avoid too many layers in one spot. You can hear Saul clanging beer bottles around. You'll have to come in when the pandemic's over and have a beer with us or a glass of wine. Or come in tonight and do it. Well, actually not tonight. We're not open tonight. Friday or Saturday night. Easel. All right, so I've got red, I've got orange, and now coming out higher than the blue, I'm going to put yellow. But remember, you want these to overlap. We don't want it to have just a row of yellow like a circle, like a halo. We're going to have a few random ones overlapping with other colors in the tree, okay? We want the outsides of the tree to be yellow in dabs, but then we're going to put some random ones inside as well, just like with these. You want mostly red, orange, yellow, and this one mostly blue, red, orange, yellow, but some of them overlap. The general idea is the brighter colors tend to sit on the outsides of the tree because that's what gets more light. And this one, I just need more or less the top of the tree because we're going to put a big tree right here. So you can see those dabs are overlapping. And then don't forget to, you know, pop on a few on the side so it looks like you did something with the side too. Now I know these look funny, and this looks funny. We're going to go back in and put a quick trunk in there. That'll be very quick. But I want to let that dry a bit, okay? Let me show you how we can, I'm going to put a stick down in this one so you can see how I do it. So basically I just take my baby brush and my black paint. My baby brush and my black paint. And I'm going to pull it up through a clump. I don't really have a clump that looks like a bush too much. I can do it in this one. How's this? I'll do it in this one. And I'm just going to make a shape of a trunk. And this one doesn't have that, but I just want to show you. And any place where you have a clump that looks like it could be a bush, just pull a little trunk through it, and then branches. I'm going to do that up here in this tree, and I'm spinning my brush as I go. If you're able to do that, the reason I'm doing that is I want to keep if my brush is large, too large, if I spin it just a tad as I'm pulling and I do it really softly, I can get these smaller branches because it kind of chisels your brush. It just
What
depends
did you mix the black with?
Can you repeat that, please?
What did you mix the black with?
I didn't mix it with anything. It's just straight on black.
Okay.
So in order to get the brush to be more tame and to chisel it to a finer point, I can pick it up on the side of the plate like this and pull it and twist it in my fingers as I'm pulling it, and that will help it make it a little bit thinner. My brush is not very small and thin, so I have to do that to try to not get great big fat lines in it. And I can do the same thing over here. Now this is going to be covered a lot by a tree in a minute, but just to show you, there's a trunk, and then I pull the other branches through the trunk. Pull the branches through the trunk, because if you start out in the sky and pull in, you're going to get a cactus, because more paint is left at the bottom of the trunk where you first start to touch it, and then less as you go out. So you always want to start in the trunk and pull branches through. Start in the trunk, pull through and out. You always want to make tree branches pulled out from the trunk so that they're not too fat. And I'll just repeat that if you didn't catch it the first time. If you start in the sky and pull in with your branches, you're leaving too much paint at the end of your branches, and you'll have a cactus. So I just cleaned the black off my brush because I'm going to go back in and I'm going to dab a little bit more yellow where I'm seeing that the yellow is not really holding up. But I already have my trunk on. If you do this, make sure your brush is really clean first if you touch up any of your yellows. And I can wait till all that's dry, and then I can add some more white and yellow. So don't overdo the trunks, use a light hand. If you don't like them, don't try to remove it now, just leave it, let it dry, and then you can paint white over it later. So after you get your trunks on, the one thing I didn't show you with those trees, and then we'll be done with our trees, is at the very tops of those yellow, mix more white with your yellow, more yellow with a little bit of white, and then put on some white at the tips of all those. And that's just going to really make those, and it's very messy and loose and not perfect, but it's really going to make those trees look like, yeah, there's some serious sunlight hitting it. Avoid your trunks, of course. There's some serious sunlight hitting back there. So it's just white and yellow on any yellow tips that you want. That's the last part of the bushes and shrubbery. All we have left after this is a big old tree, and then we're done. And that tree's not going to take too long. So after the trunks, mix a little white with some more yellow, and then just with that bright, bright yellow, just dab on any spots where you want a little more highlight on your yellow. And I had to wait till more of the yellow was dry before I did that. That's why I'm telling you that now. And then I'm going to just, before I paint my big tree, which is the finale of this painting, I'm going to step away and see my painting from a distance, from a proper viewing distance. See how if I put on a little bit of that bright yellow and white, how it just really pops on the tree? When that tree dries more, so I don't run the risk of touching the trunk, I can put in a few more pops internally, and it's just going to make that tree really, really shimmer and shine. But I'm going to leave that alone for now and let it dry a bit more before I do that. I'm going to step back and look at my painting from 10 feet away, see what I think. Something like that. I looked at mine from far away and it looked like something was missing in here. So I'm going to just use, this is actually a gold, and gold is kind of hard. Gold's like orange with a little more yellow. And then the tiniest amount, like the amount of dirt on the shoelace of a ladybug of black, which is really hard to get that much. We'll see if I can get anywhere close to that. It's really hard to mix gold.
Yeah.
We'll see. But you can just do it in orange if you want. And basically there was just some gold scribbled in right here. Just like, I'm just putting it right behind my little bushes there. If you don't want to do that, don't bother, it's okay. I just noticed it was pretty different than the original, so. I am liking these yellow, this bright yellow though. And I do hope that you tried that little bright yellow and white on the tips of those far away trees. And then once this is dry, you can put some of that a little more internally just to make that tree pop a little bit more. But you can only do it on where it's dry. So kind of one of those at your own risk kind of things. And I don't want to overdo it, but it just kind of adds a little bit more light here and there in the tree. All right. I think we're doing pretty well. It's the painting, my painting looks different than the original, and I'm okay with that. I hope you are too. I hope you like how yours is different and unique. And we will move on. Painting light is fun. Putting those highlights on, that's fun. Oh, and by the way, if you didn't already, put a few of those white highlights in that grass too, where the yellow would be. And you'll see how that makes that pop a little bit more there too. It's just kind of white over the yellow, or just mix slightly with yellow. And just adding a little bit of light just really says, wow, this is where the sun is coming in and really landing on those spots. A little bit of white's a good thing. All right, so why don't we, we're gonna finish up this painting. Sound good? Like I said, yours is gonna look different than mine. I can't wait to see yours at the end. We're gonna have to do a show and tell at the very end, okay? All right. One other thing I noticed, there's a little bit of black in here. So I'm gonna take my tiniest brush, I'm gonna chisel it on the side of my plate in the black, like that. And then I'm just going to squiggle on, kind of zigzaggy, not neat, kind of a scribble, a little bit in there. And basically all I'm doing is just adding a little bit of contour. And then if you want to pop in any, you know, random areas in black, you know, feel free. But I just wanted a little contour on that side of the river because it kind of got washed in with all these plants. But don't make a straight line. Whatever you do, don't make a straight line, okay? And then you could put any other, you know, dark color near it if you want to just add a little more contour, a little more contrast rather. But I'm not going to overdo that. Just want a little contour and contrast back there. If it's not jagged enough, you can take a little white on your brush and jagged it up a bit again. Just don't make a straight line, whatever you do, just don't make a straight line back there. Okay. All right, so now what we have left is a tree, this tree, the main tree. All right, and you know exactly how to do it. Now for this one, because it's a big tree, I'm gonna take my big brush, I'm gonna clean it off. It's been sitting in my water, it's been sitting in the hot tub for a while. So I'm gonna take the big brush, I'm gonna put red paint on both sides of it. Remember how we did these? We're gonna do the same thing. All right, our tree is gonna be here, so kind of envision it. And in the center, I'm gonna put these dabs as the heart of my tree. I know, we did all that hard work on the grass and I'm gonna cover it up. Jeez. The nerve, right? And then I'm going to mix some more yellow and orange together. If I don't have any more orange. A little more. Now I need some orange. Make sure you leave a little bit of yellow for out here, okay? And then this is gonna be the orange dabs. And they're gonna overlap, but go a little farther out than the red. So I can fill in some of those red internally, but then now it's orange. And it's overlapping with everything else. If you just haven't started this tree and you're like, I don't want a tree there, then don't put a tree there. That's your call. Your world, your call. But there is a big tree here. If this is all too wet, you can wait and let it dry a bit. It's pretty dry here at the studio, and I don't know where you are. You know, if you're in a place with a lot of humidity, you've got a swamp cooler and there's a lot of humidity going on, then you might need to wait. All right, and then my yellow is going to be the parts on the outside, just like we did here. Overlapping. Now it doesn't look like a tree yet because it doesn't have a trunk. I need to run and get some more yellow. Actually, I can maybe ask my assistant. Assistant, could I have some more yellow? Thanks. It's the chrome yellow. Thank you. So more yellow at the top of the tree and then kind of framing the tree. You probably heard a few minutes ago, we had somebody stop in to buy a kit. We do sell these kits at the door. and then people just paint whatever they want from our YouTube channel. All right. And you may need to mix that yellow with some white. If you still have some white, maybe mix a little bit of the white into the yellow, and it will help it sit on the tips of those branches better if it has a little white mixed in. Our yellow, for some reason, really needs white. It needs a boost with a little bit of white to sit on top of the darker colors. See, that makes a huge difference when you stick a little white in there. All right, so now it's starting to take a shape, a little bit more like a tree, right? There we go. And you can't see it from up close. I have to look at the camera or step away to be able to see what I'm painting. So if you're not sure what yours looks like, again, walk away, give it 10 feet and see. Okay, now it's looking more like a tree. I'm just going to overlap these just enough that it doesn't look too just orange, just red in the center. Just a little bit more. Okay. And then the way we finish up that tree is the same way we did the trunk before. Exactly the same way. I'm going to show you, and I know you're not ready for it yet. I know you're still making all your branches and leaves, right? I know you're just tapping that on, but I'm going to go ahead and show you my tree, how to do the inside of the tree, even though you're not ready for it. So don't panic. I know you're not. I'm going to take a little bit of that black on the bottom of my medium brush. I'm going to come up through it. Always make sure on a tree that the trunk is bigger. So you always start at the bottom, right? Because that's where the more paint will touch. And then as I go up, I'm going to turn my brush a quarter turn. And I don't want that main trunk to be straight. So I turn it a quarter turn. That does two things. It makes it harder for me to make a straight line. I don't want a straight line. It also makes it thinner as I go. And then I'm going to come off and make branches. I'm going to always start down in the trunk. I'm going to pull up through it and then come out and make branches by just turning my brush a quarter turn. And never make branches straight. Then you can finish up any smaller branches you want with your tiniest brush and just pull them off of the bigger branches. Oops. It's always good to come through the branch and then out. If you start in the sky when you're painting your branches and you pull in, what do you get? A cactus. And we make lots of cactuses here, and that's exactly how you do it, is you pull in from the sky. But from a tree, you pull out from the trunk because your lines get smaller as you pull out. So now I've got a tree. Now, this one's a little bit brighter orange. You know, you can go back and forth and put more, you know, brighter orange leaves if you want. It's really your call at this point. But compositionally, I'm going to say that my painting's done. So I'm going to just pop on a few brighter orange ones, and I'm over those trunks, and I'm just going to call mine done. I'm going to sign it, and I'm going to sit back with a glass of wine, and I'm going to admire the painting I did, and I hope you do too. So I can just pop on a few more oranges anywhere I want. Pop on whatever you want, if you want, or leave it alone. But feel free to tweak all you want. It's your painting, your world. So if it's not done, you're the one who decides that, not me. Okay? And yeah, I'd say we have a painting. I'd say we have a nice little painting. Thank you so much for painting with me today. I hope you guys had a good time.